have a doppelganger.
Yeah?
All right. Okay, so I don't know if you can see me, but we're on. Helen and I are on Wraith, which is a steel-hulled boat. We have Jeff and Vicky. I don't even know your last name. Vigler.
V-I-D-L-E-R.
Right on. So what's fascinating is we were taking the bus to Cologne, and we were just chatting away. And so how long have you been doing there? So you've been at it for 18 years.
Well, we've been sailing this boat for 18 years. We've lived on it for 20, and I've sailed all my life. So.
That's amazing. And you started in Australia?
No, I started sailing in England.
Right on.
I was born in London, but I've sailed all my life. I've always messed around with boats ever since I was a few years old.
And so, how did you? You know, here you are, and we're in Panama, and the rest to go is to get to Australia, right?
Yes, of course.
Right. So this is the downwind, beautiful stretch.
Yeah.
But how'd you decide? I mean, you know, Helen and I came to a point where we were like, well, let's go sailing, but it's different for everybody.
Well,
so how'd you decide to go?
Yeah, well, we had an advantage because this is our second time round. So we were both divorced after being married 19 years each. So we both got a couple of kids, and when we got serious about each other, we were introduced by friends, and I said, look, I'm going around the world in my own yacht. Now, if you don't want to do this, this is a real deal buster.
So what did you say, Vicky?
Yeah.
Well, I said, yeah, fine. I'm an adventurous person, so why not? But I really didn't believe him.
Well,
I thought, no, he's dreaming.
No, so anyway,
you proved her wrong.
We searched for a boat, and we bought this because it was in our budget. And
Was it used?
Oh yes, it's second-hand. It was not finished, and it was a project that we had to complete.
And what kind of boat is it?
A bollard. It's Australian steel boat.
Oh, it's steel.
Yes.
Yeah. And how long is it?
It's 45 feet.
And how many miles have you sailed, do you think?
Oh, goodness gracious. And there's perhaps 40,000. Because we've zigzagged all over the world.
18 years traveling around the world.
Yeah, but we've zigzagged all over the place. So it's not as if we just did a quick circumnavigation.
No,
we
not
started
at all.
off in Indonesia.
You really soaked it up.
Yeah, and then went to dozens of islands in Indonesia, and then of course from there to Singapore and Malaysia and Thailand, and from there we actually did backpacking into Vietnam.
Oh wow!
And up to the Chinese border. So we've travelled around a lot.
Yeah, you have. And then, so after Southeast Asia, where'd you go?
Southeast Asia, well, after we'd done our backpacking stint, we crossed the Indian Ocean, and we went to Sri Lanka.
Okay.
And
Did you go to Chagos afterwards?
No, we just went to Galle. But we travelled extensively in Sri Lanka on buses and tea plantations.
How was it?
And stuff. Good, really good.
Tamil tigers there at this time?
They were dropping hand grenades in the bay at night to stop them coming in indiscriminately. But other than that, it was really good.
What?
From there, we went to the Maldives.
Uh-huh.
Now, the Maldives, of course, are known for their lovely honeymoon islands.
Yes.
But at the north, they're really dour, just coral, not a blade of grass. And we stayed there, and we couldn't leave any island. We had to stay in one spot. It's a horrible Islamic country, in actual fact. And I don't suppose you want to say that on your YouTube.
It doesn't matter.
We really didn't like it.
Well,
and from there we
it's
went.
beautiful, but
From there we went to Oman. I mean, the southern part of the Maldives was very good.
Yeah.
But the northern part we really wasn't. So we went to Oman, and then crossed the.
Yemen?
Yeah, we went to Oman and Yemen.
Yeah, so you're like the only cruisers I've ever met who actually went to the Horn of Africa. This is before all the pirates.
No. We had trouble. We had trouble with that.
How'd that go?
Okay, because we're still here. But we went to Oman, and it's unbelievably rich, unbelievably oil rich, and you can't step out of the marina without someone stopping in their Mercedes or Beamer to give you a lift. They'll go 20 miles out the way. They're really good. But you cross the border into Yemen, which has got no money, and they'll kill you for $1. I mean, it's just so different. And anyway, we left Yemen to go to Eritrea, and we were 30 miles off the coast. And then some idiot comes on the radio saying, we can see you, and we can come and murder you and rape your sisters, which didn't give me a real warm feeling.
That's hardly a warm welcome now.
Why your sisters?
Well, of course, that's just to say. And anyway, we left, and then there was...
Did you phone them back in Australia and let them know?
No, of course not. What send out the highway patrol.
But it could have been anyone just mucking
And
around.
so
at
we
the
went
yard.
across, and then a very suspicious looking boat come up to us, almost certainly pirate boat, but they couldn't board us because we'd run into a storm at that stage, and so they couldn't get on board, so we just kept going.
Wow.
And so we were fine then, but the boat behind us, catamaran, the next day left, and they did get boarded by pirates, and they put a pistol in this poor woman's mouth and held her up against the bulkhead, and they ransacked the boat. They didn't even use spanners to steal their radios and radar. They
They just
smashed
ripped it
away
out.
with an axe.
Did they
Oh
hurt
my
her?
God.
But no, except of course psychologically. I think she
Oh,
was
yeah.
under psychiatric care for months.
I would be too.
She was
Well,
in,
I
she
just
was in a
think-
real mess.
What if they got our girls?
Yeah. Anyway, we went to Eritrea, and then you start going up the Red Sea with the wind in your face for
Yeah.
the next 800 miles. So you tack from Eritrea to Saudi Arabia to Eritrea to Saudi Arabia to Eritrea. So
Wow.
here we are at Sudan. At last,
Finally.
and finally sort of gradually tack your way up the Red Sea.
Wow.
Sudan,
That's
of course,
cool.
is incredibly poor.
Yes.
And
Do you go into ports and go
Oh,
in?
yes,
yeah.
we went inland.
Well, we're
Do you
just-
sail too? Are you just an adequate sailor?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just do what I'm told. Yes.
I'm not sure that's entirely true.
No. When we're sailing, there can only be one captain.
That is true. That is
We have
true.
I quite often say I'm the admiral, so.
Well, you know what? The admiral passed the tools to the captain. I saw in the alternator earlier.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you went through the Suez,
Yes.
and then
through
cool.
Suez Canal.
and then you were in the Mediterranean when you got hit by the tanker.
Yeah, but that was
But
much,
that was
a long,
this is
long
just
time
recently.
afterwards.
Oh.
The latest.
That was much later because
Yeah.
we went through Suez, and nothing gets done there without backsheesh. Where's my present? You can't move 1 inch in the Suez Canal without a pilot on board, and whoever comes on board or any comes near your boat says, "Where's my present?"
Wow.
And that's the way life works there. I think the locals just factor it into their way of life like another tax. But for the ordinary Westerner, it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I bet.
Everyone wants their backsheesh. So
Wow.
it was good though. We left Port Said, and we were going to go to Cyprus, but the wind was just smacking our, not right in our face, but too hard to point to Cyprus. So we
Yeah.
looked at our charts and we decided Israel was a good option. So we went to Ashkelon in Israel instead.
Is this where you got Q fever?
That's where I fell down with it. Yes,
Yeah.
I actually got Q fever in Sudan. Goats there, as I told you earlier
Yeah.
on.
What's Q
Yeah,
fever?
because it's got an
Q fever's
8-week incubation.
That's crazy.
I've never met anyone with Q fever, but
Yeah.
tell Helen.
Yeah, Q fever is a disease that you get from cattle. You get it. The bacteria lives in their urine. Well, goats are much worse, and it lives in their placenta. And when the goat kids, the bacteria for the Q fever lives on their hair, and it's got to completely dry out, and you ingest it through the lungs. It's the only way you can catch it. So not too many people get it. So of course I was unfortunate enough because the goats had nothing to eat. There's kids there just lie down on the road and starve. But we were in Sudan when this happened, and these goats had nothing to eat. They were eating cardboard boxes, and I felt sorry for them. I went down with all their food scraps from the boat, and I'm feeding these goats and touching them, and that's what they gave me in return. And we were in Jerusalem, and it hit me so quickly. I suddenly,
8 weeks later.
yeah, I just said to Vicky, I feel so sick. I don't know what's wrong with me. And my temperature went up to 42 degrees within about 8 hours, and I just couldn't move. I just
Yeah.
could not move. And then,
How long were you sick?
weeks and weeks.
Yeah, but
Did you
We-
waste
Well,
away?
then he went to
Yeah,
the hospital.
I was only 58 kilo. And
What's that in pounds?
That's nothing.
Yeah.
That's it. That's,
put it this way, it's
so
I'm
58 times.
54 kilos.
Yeah,
Mm.
2.2.
So it's only 4 kilos.
So
kilos.
basically 100 and maybe 35.
Mm.
But I went there and they couldn't find out what was wrong there, of course. And so eventually, they gave me all horrible treatments like bone marrow biopsies and things that I really didn't like. And eventually I got back to Australia because it was the only way we could do
But
it.
didn't you went into a coma while you're going to
Yes, I
Cyprus?
did.
Yes. What happened?
Yeah, we'd left and it was 4 hours out and I didn't feel too bad and I suddenly fell over and I was just in a coma and I can't remember any of the trip at
How
all. It
long?
was a 2-day trip, but I can't remember any of
So
it.
I had the boat all to myself for
Finally some
3
peace.
nights.
Wait, you were out in the water when this happened?
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
They were sailing to Cyprus from Jerusalem.
yes.
Yeah.
And, and I couldn't wake him up. He was gone.
He's in a coma.
Yeah.
Were you
And,
nervous?
Well, I was fortunate the weather was really great. You know, I just had this gentle breeze. I only had to change the sail once. And anyway, when I got to Cyprus, I just radioed the port and I said, you know, I'm not experienced enough to bring this boat into the port. I need assistance. I explained what happened and they were great. They came out and took over. They had an ambulance waiting, they had the officials to clear us in, and they took Jess straight to hospital.
Right on.
Oh,
They did everything except cure me.
Yeah.
you're lucky you had her.
Yeah. But there was no way they could find out what was wrong with me.
How do you spell? Is it just the letter Q?
Yes, just the letter Q. And there's three types. There's Q fever, acute Q fever, and chronic Q
And he
fever.
had
Yeah.
the chronic.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, so it really can be debilitating. Some people have it and they don't even know they've had it. And the doctor might do a blood test and say, oh, you've had Q fever. And I say, well, have I? And other people like me just about die of it.
Wow.
So it can be, you know, vastly different, the effects on different people.
Wow.
But I was cured in Australia.
So you were on antibiotics for years, though, yeah?
Yeah, so
Three
it was,
years.
yeah, antibiotics 3 years. It took a long, long time to cure it.
And because
3 years?
Yes.
What the doctor said, and of course you will know all about this, they said you have to run for a 4-day period without your temperature going above 38 degrees. And it would go 3 days and I think I'm fixed.
Yes.
And on the 4th day it would go up
It would
again.
pop up, yeah.
Yeah. And so it took that long to stabilise my temperature.
Wow.
I had boxes and boxes of antibiotics. So
That's amazing. So a little detour on the world tour to go back to Australia to get properly diagnosed and then treated.
Yeah.
So then you went back to Cyprus, or how did things go
Well,
after
what
that?
happened is when I was in Australia, in Adelaide, I was diagnosed with cancer, so they fixed that too. So that was really good.
So you are a fan of the Australian medical
Yeah,
system.
that was really handy because there's two friends of mine, or well, one was a friend and one I met at the hospital, and both of those died within 6 months. And the doctors also warned me that 50% of the time this particular cancer comes back.
Wow. Were you a smoker?
Well, was, but not then.
Okay.
But no, it didn't come back, and I'm totally free. I mean,
What kind of
at
cancer
this
was
point,
it?
yeah, bladder.
It's bladder cancer, and
And 50%?
50%
Wow.
it comes back again. Not
Yeah.
50% die, but undiagnosed. Apparently, it was frightening.
Oh yeah, it can be horrible.
Something like only 5% of people
That's
live
great.
a couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really frightening.
So you
I
had
was
it
so
cut
lucky.
out.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It was cut out. It was cauterized with laser treatment.
Right
Cut
on.
out. Very, very uncomfortable afterwards.
I can
I
imagine.
can just, I mean, if this is going to be viewed by anyone, I shouldn't be saying it, but all I can say, it was like when you went to urinate, it was like someone had got a piece of barbed wire and heated up red hot and shoving it up and down where you just don't need it.
No, thank you. I've had enough, thank you.
And then the endoscopy, that is the correct word, isn't it?
Yes.
That they do.
Yeah.
I think I had 18 of those afterwards.
Wow.
And psychologically, it doesn't hurt, but psychologically
Oh
it's
no,
not real nice.
it's only one way to flow on that one.
But because he's been on antibiotics for so long,
Yeah.
he's now sun sensitive.
Oh really?
Yes.
Yeah,
he
well, the
burns
particular
easily.
antibiotics I took made me pretty
Yeah.
sensitive.
Was it tetracycline you took, or?
I can't remember. There were so many different drugs they
Wow.
tried on me because there was.
So you were unable to be killed,
Yes, exactly right.
and
You're like fat.
you were. So was that the first or like the seventh life?
I think it must have been the 11th or something.
I think he's
So
passed
anyway,
his 7 lives,
everything
9 lives.
was fixed,
Yeah.
and cancer was fixed and never come back. Q fever I won't get again because you develop an immunity to it.
Right on.
So at least that's two more
can-
things that won't happen.
Knock those right off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you healthy all the time?
I'm the healthy one.
Yeah, other than that, it was
Definitely.
pretty good though. We travelled all around the Mediterranean. We went once round the coast and once zigzagging across all the islands so that we encompassed Sicily and Sardinia and Corsica and Elba and Pantelleria and Cyprus, of course. we
What
went
was the
to.
most interesting thing in the Mediterranean that you saw?
Wow.
There's so many interesting things, it's
Oh.
hard to say. I think possibly in Italy because it has so much history.
Yes.
In Rome, the Vatican was just unbelievable in its wealth and its beauty. There was just so many things all round.
Wow.
And one of the wonders, of course, of being in Europe is we can go from one country to the other without having all this
Right. Rigmarole.
rigmarole of clearing in and out. So the disadvantage now, of course, is that you can only be 3 months in and you've got to be 3 months out.
Did you get this in Italy?
No,
The rosary?
My mother's.
Oh, perfect.
I have mine up too.
Yeah, it's good to have on hand.
I've got two.
Yeah.
Did you use the rosary when you were in the 50-foot seas? No?
No.
You didn't?
I had a lucky eye somewhere. Is there a blue lucky eye around there?
Oh, yeah,
There is right there, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's over here.
Oh, this is a funny story with this lucky eye, I tell you.
There it is. He's turned around.
Check
Oh, yeah.
that.
You guys have that around too.
That is a nice big fat lucky eye.
That is a
And we were
lucky eye.
having a lot of trouble with the boat, with the engine. And we had this wonderful couple, she was Australian, and she said, "You better go and buy a lucky eye." You know, just for the...
Sure.
So, of course, we just bought this lucky eye just for fun. And I hung it up there and it was swinging on the roof.
Yeah.
We were in a bad seaway. This damn thing hit me straight in the eye.
Give you a lucky eye.
And I had this whopping black eye for ages afterwards.
Oh,
So
my
we
goodness.
changed the location to it. We don't
Yeah, well,
have
that
it
could
there.
actually, that's at a
Wow.
lower
It's for him get-
location.
Yeah.
That might, you might
certainly
have to
is.
go back to the
It
urologist.
certainly is, yeah.
That was so funny.
So one of the crazy things you told me on the bus was like, I asked you, how big were the seas? You were trying to get down from Belize to Panama,
Well,
and
yes, that's right, yes.
and you came into a big storm.
Yeah, there was a massive, massive low come in. It was predicted by Chris Parker. The original weather forecast was okay. That was 10 metre seas. Some were bigger, some would have been 15. And in the middle of all this, in the dark, the block broke off the boom in 40 knots of wind, and the boom was swinging around like crazy. And so it was climbing on the coach roof, trying to tame the thing. We lassoed it and managed to inch it in bit by
what
bit.
what were the seas like?
Huge, absolutely whopping.
I mean, what's huge? I mean,
Well,
give me a number.
the swells were 10 metres on
10 to
average.
15 meters.
10
Oh.
to 15. They were really,
So
everything was
comfortably 50-foot waves.
Yeah,
40 to
everything
50
was
foot
underwater.
waves.
Everything was underwater all the time. We lost the navigation lights because the bow was disappearing underneath, and the deck was totally full of water.
Awash.
But
And your mast, how tall is your mast?
it's 17.5 metres off the sea.
And you were saying the mast was below in the
Yeah,
in the
yeah, and some of them, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Just the freak ones, just the
But-
freak. But it wasn't, when you say 15 metre waves, it wasn't 15 metres all the time, of course.
Well, still,
It
but
was
you
sort of
know,
8 and 10 metres, most average. Every now
only
and
8 or
again.
10 meters.
Every now
You
and
would
then
get
you
something
Only
get
30
the
foot.
wave.
Yeah, yeah.
But I must admit that the storm that we got caught in Bass Strait,
Yeah,
that was the worst.
Mm.
I mean, this was just a pussycat in comparison.
Really?
Now you can tell me about that.
Please.
Because I was a novice then too.
Yeah, we actually had left Adelaide to go round Bass Strait, which is between Tasmania and mainland Australia,
Okay.
and the waves come unbroken there from Antarctica, so that you can get pretty nasty weather.
Ah.
The year before our friends went through, they had to motor because there was no winds. We went through, and they put out a severe weather warning, and there's nowhere to go for about 100 miles, of course, and that was just massive. We were just swamped all the time. We broke out, and the boat went right over, it broke its boom in the middle, and
So you were knocked down.
yeah, we were knocked down completely, yeah.
And quite
And
often
when it came up, all the water was in the sails. I can always remember the water cascading out of the sails. Like that.
Wow.
and we
like a
both had our
waterfall.
harness on. He was
Yeah.
tied on to the helm. I was down here tied on to, a handle over there. And being as thick as a dog, my head in a bucket. And I would look, and I couldn't see the sky. There was all these people rolling. Have you ever seen the movie?
The Perfect Storm. Yes.
Only we're only a little boat, so that's what it reminded me
Wow.
of. It was horrendous. Now,
And how big were those waves, would you guess?
I don't know.
they were a lot
just,
bigger.
They were just massive.
A lot bigger.
They were
Yes.
just massive.
And
It's not uncommon actually going through Bass Straits to get waves as 80 feet. I don't think we had that bad, but I know in the Sydney Hobart race, I think it was 89 or something like that.
Yes.
There was 6 people were killed in it. You get
This
some
is
pretty
the Queen's Island or Queen's Day. No?
It actually starts on Boxing Day,
Okay.
and it's not always, of course. It's we
Okay.
always talk about the bad things. Most of it's usually fine.
but
we
it
had some bad
lasted,
weather
it
that
lasted
time.
10 hours.
Mm.
And then eventually
So what do you do in that? Did you heave to, or
We couldn't heave to.
No.
No.
so you sailed through it?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we had a little handkerchief to sail up
Yes.
because this boat is better. It doesn't go too well under bare
Okay.
course.
And then
And heaving to, You've got to have sail up to heave to anyway.
Right.
Lying a hull is really dangerous.
No,
I don't know
you're
if you've
right
ever
about
tried
that.
it. It's so uncomfortable, and it's just a matter of when you're going to roll over, not if you're going to roll
Right.
over. So.
And so were you were bow to or stern to?
We were trying to run. Well, the waves were very, very confused. They get there confused.
Yes.
Most of the waves were hitting us on the quarter, on the front, on the bow.
Okay. Wow.
So trying to take it on the strongest point.
Yeah.
But we actually, you couldn't see too much because the rain and surf and wind, it was horizontal. And I heard this wave coming towards me, and you couldn't see anything. I just hung onto the wheel
Yeah.
for grim death, and this thing smashed into me. I thought it broke my ribs because it smashed me into the wheel, and then it just but we got in and everything was right. But you know, don't get the idea that sailing's
I
like
know,
that.
stop
No,
telling
no,
me
no.
stories. I want to
No,
hear
but
it.
it's one of those things where you're like, I mean, you guys have been through it.
It's
You
not
know?
like that. I mean,
No, of course not.
for
Yeah,
years
it's
and
been-
years,
it's
we've
been
done 18
wonderful,
years,
yeah.
and I
The
suppose
rest
if
of
you
it's
can
good.
compress all these bad times into
Yeah.
a few
But
weeks.
the funny part about it is that, you know, then eventually we went into this beautiful little port on the east coast of Australia in the summer
No, it's on the
about...
south coast, love.
Oh, is it?
Should have,
Oh,
should
I
have.
thought it was-
No, we hadn't
anyway.
gone round. It was on the south coast.
And we looked like drowned rats, if you could imagine. And it took him 10 weeks to get me out of there.
Wow.
I'm not going out there. I think it's still too rough.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know?
I'd be the same, I
I
think.
would
But the
too.
thing is that because of that, after that, if we got caught in bad weather, you know, it gave me confidence with the boat.
Yeah, I bet.
You
Then
know,
you
so
knew.
even this storm that we got caught in coming
Yeah.
over, to me, you know, it didn't
Well,
affect
I
me
asked
at
you.
all.
I said, were you nervous? He said,
No.
no, as cool as a cucumber.
Yeah, we
No, it's a very strong boat. It's, first of all, it's steel, so it's
Yeah.
not going to break.
Right.
And it has half-an-inch Lexan windows.
Well,
You can't break
yeah,
it with
no,
a sledgehammer.
No.
It's so providing you've got storm boards in, it will just be
Yeah.
like a cork. You can throw a bottle into the worst type of sea, it's not going to break.
That's right.
It just gets
No,
thrown
it's a
around.
really
You've got
good
more
safe
chance
boat.
of getting killed being thrown around inside your boat
You're right.
than you ever have of it sinking or drowning.
Plus, you have your lucky eyes everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
Right,
That's
exactly.
true.
And
I'm
I've
gonna
got-
get one. Where do you get
And
those?
I've got the rosary beads as well.
That's
Two lots.
backup.
I never knew about the lucky eye, but I'm getting one of those now.
For sure.
But you
No,
know,
this here was a
most of
present.
it's really good. There
we've had
are
some wonderful
enlightening
times.
stories as well. We went down the west coast of Africa,
Uh-huh.
and we went to after Morocco. We went to the Canary Islands and Senegal and Gambia. And Gambia is a very, very poor country.
You
And
were
we
saying, yeah.
sailed down the river to Georgetown, and we'd come back.
It was lovely.
And they had this little school there. They was immensely proud of the school, but the kids had one pencil between 4 pupils, and
Wow.
you sort of one book between the whole class, this type of thing. And they'd all graduated, haven't they? But they had to pay to go to high school. And there was this
Really?
little kid, I can remember Demba, his name was, he's
Huh.
only 13, and he was left behind because his mother, her entire wages was half a bag of rice a month, wasn't it?
Yes.
So she could feed her 10 kids. She had 10 children. And the husband was way, way older than her, which often is the case in those countries.
Wow.
And he couldn't go to school because they had no money. But we actually sponsored him, and we bought him his uniform and pens and pencils and paid for his education for a year. So we don't know the result, of course, of what's happened, but we hope he grabbed the opportunity with both
I'm
hands.
sure he did.
I really, really hope he
But
did.
also the medical
Oh, the
you
medical, I mean, the sort of clinics were really just a tin shed on a dirt floor, and they have 2 types of treatment. They have paracetamol and anti-malarial tablets.
Well,
So unless you've got malaria or a headache, you're dead.
Yeah, there was that little baby that was...
Yeah,
Pause.
and-
I gotta go get mine.
okay.
Can we put a quick pause?
Sure. Do you want to just run down?
Well, I'm cooking.
All right.
Do you guys want to come have some pasta?
No. We've already eaten.
Okay.
I actually bought a hamburger in the hotel tonight on the way, because I knew I was going to work on this. I didn't feel like.
Right on.
Alright. I'm cooking, so I gotta.
All right.
Okay.
I'll be over in just a bit.
Okay.
Goodbye.
We'll see you
Enjoy
tomorrow.
yourself.
Do you want another slash?
Yep.
Get it?
All right.
I want to look around for 1 second.
She's really homely.
Oh, it's a great boat.
Oh, it's not luxury, not yours. We know what yours looks like. But we
You should
didn't
come over
want-
and check it out.
We will tomorrow
All right,
after
right
it's
on.
finished.
Perfect.
So tomorrow...
If my
when I
orphanage
get
is
back-
working, we'll come over and
It
celebrate.
will. I'm going to bring you a bottle of rum if I hear it humming. Oh, thank you. That's perfect. Thanks. That's more than enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is for. Oh. I thought it was the.
Oh, no, it's my liqueur glass. I love liqueur. No, I was just ding-a-ling-a-ling, it's ready.
This keeps the blood flowing through my brain.
All right,
It
we'll
just
see you
thins it a
tomorrow.
bit.
Okay, Helen.
Cheers.
See ya.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
See you in
Yeah.
a bit.
But, yeah, there was this little baby. That was so sad.
Yeah, there was a little kid there. There was a German with very, very few cruisers. You really just don't meet them.
Yes,
And-
but down there, excuse me, there was only 3.
There was us 2 boats, and this other guy, the German guy.
Oh, you're right. Everyone seems to go up Namibia and then they take off for.
Yeah.
But
And
he-
also
there-
the
was just-
charts in the river were...
No,
were-
they're miles out. Yeah, you couldn't.
Yeah.
If you used a GPS for the chart,
Oh,
you
yeah.
couldn't see your boat. You couldn't
You're
see the
sailing
river.
on dry
You could
land.
see your boat, you couldn't see the river. But there was this little baby, probably I don't know, 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably 6 months old, and
Yeah.
he had water on the brain. This little kid.
Okay.
And of course, his head was huge; it couldn't move it.
Yeah.
Oh, could you go
And
to me,
because-
Helen?
Oh, sure. Yes.
And because they hadn't moved
Thank you.
the baby for so long, it had all maggots crawling in its head.
Oh my God.
And he said, look, the baby has to be hospitalised. So they put the baby and the mother in a dinghy and took it down to the ferry and got it to a hospital. But of course, the father has to work in the rice fields, and she's got 10 children. 10 seems a lucky number over there for
It
children.
does.
And they just said, well, you have to stay here because there's no one to feed the child. And of course she couldn't, so she brought the child back with the same bandages that this German guy put on the baby. And the child only lived another...
days.
No, perhaps a couple of weeks, I think. I don't know.
Wow.
But died.
Yeah.
But you just don't
Really
realise how
sad.
lucky you are when you live in
You're
a Western
absolutely right.
country.
Yeah. You know, we go back home and, you know, people moan and groan and I think you don't know how lucky you are.
You're
You
absolutely
know,
right.
it's really opened our eyes and I try not to complain.
The medical
You know,
attention is just
How
wonderful.
fortunate we are.
You are so right.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, if there's anything we've learned on this short trip so far, and our daughters have learned, they don't complain anymore. They don't. And just how good we have it. And you know,
Exactly.
even the worst off
Yes.
in the Western world has
Their
got it.
social security,
Yes.
they're not going to starve.
You're right. And you know, I mean, it's probably the only place in the world where the poorest people are fat. Right?
Except in Gambia.
Well, I mean in the
Yes.
U.S.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the US,
Come on.
of course,
Yeah.
definitely.
So,
Yes, for
well,
sure.
what advice would you have for? So, you know, Helen and I and our girls, we've been sailing now we've had the boat for a year. And what advice do you have? We're going through the canal. We're going into the Pacific. Now, you haven't sailed across the Pacific yet.
No,
You
not
sailed
yet.
everything
No.
else in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
But what advice do you have in terms of just, you know, just the way we think about sailing and think about the world?
I think everyone has to be prepared to do their bit. That sometimes it's very easy when everything's running well, but when the weather's horrible or the autopilot breaks and you've all got to take turns and steering the boat hour after hour, I think everyone has to knuckle down and say, well, look, this is it, things go wrong, let's make the best of it.
So, it's amazing that, because you've had things go wrong.
Everyone
that's
has
part
a
of
boat.
it.
Yeah, of course it is.
I think, you know,
Everyone who lives has something go
Of
wrong.
course.
You
I mean,
can't
in
have
the
a house.
18 years, we would have had about what?
We've had a few things go
Not
wrong.
many though.
But overall, it's
Overall, it's been
Well, you were hit by a
fantastic.
tanker.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk
yes,
about that.
God.
been...
So that was an amazing story.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how'd that happen?
Well, we were in Malta, and there had been a big storm, and in actual fact it washed the marina away. They had the mid-sea race, and they'd built this special marina, and it got washed away. But fortunately we weren't there. They wouldn't let us stay there because it was all for these big Rolex boats. So we were lucky. We were actually gotten tied up on this old schooner. But the waves were mountainous, and the waves had died. The waves are big,
Yes.
but the wind had dropped.
Okay.
And during all this, Vicky had a phone call from her father who was sick, not from her family, rather, about her father,
Yeah.
and said, if you want to see him alive, you'll have to
To come
come
back.
back. Now, there was no way you could get a berth in Malta, it's impossible, it's just too busy. But we did have a berth at Rocella Ionica in the south of Italy, and so we
Okay.
thought, well, we'll go over there. And we went, but the waves were huge and the wind had dropped and we were just rolling, and the line come off the furling drum, and Vicky was sick and she was down here, and I thought, well, I won't wait, you know, I'll just leave her and I'll go and fix the problem. So I crawled up to the bow of the boat, and with the waves all breaking over the front, but it wasn't dangerous. And of course, while I was doing this, a boat didn't see me, a huge tanker, 300,000 ton, and it just came up, and I saw it at the last second and ran down the back and tried to avoid it, and he smashed into me, but fortunately a glancing blow.
What part of the boat did it hit?
It hit the bow of the bow of my boat, and it hit him possibly a quarter of the way down, still in the point of the boat.
Yes.
And it tore all my anchor off, and the chain and the winch. And
Off the steel boat.
yeah, so it just tore it halfway down the rails and was hanging off the side. And
The bow was underwater.
yeah, it went underwater, it came up again. The actual boat laid on its side for a while because it spun around off the top. But then it came up and we could hear water rushing into it. All the lights had gone out, of course. And we then pulling up the floor, and we managed to find out where the water was coming in, and we plugged that up and broken a sea cock off. And this boat, I won't mention its name, it would be unfair. It just kept going. I don't suppose it even knew it hit us.
I wouldn't imagine.
And my wife put out a pan, mortar radio had heard everything that was going on, because we had put out a message for the boat to turn around, ordered it to turn round. And when he come back, he said it's just too dangerous to put a boat in the water to help us, but he'll give us a lead. So he pulled this whopping great 300-metre long boat alongside so that we could attend to repairs. And we managed to fix the mast by stabilising the front of it, because remember, it had all been ripped out, the front of the boat had disappeared. It was only the bulkhead that stopped the water coming in from the front.
Wow.
And we stabilised it, made sure there was no water coming in, the engine worked, and we checked our charts, and it was only about 30 miles to Ragusa. So after determining that it would be okay, we went to Ragusa. And I have to say about the shipping company that hit us, they were probably embarrassed about it, but they had an assessor there the next day.
Wow.
And they paid everything, and we said, look, even paid for the anti-foul, and we said, look, it's got to be out of the water for 3 months, and it's got to be re-anti-foul, and they paid for the anti-foul, the anchor, the chain, everything.
Everything, and straightening the...
everything, yes.
Everything.
They would not complain at all, so they were very, very good with that.
Wow.
And I thought that there might be some problems, but no, there wasn't. It was their fault, obviously.
Oh, well, of course.
They admitted it was their fault.
Well, still, that's amazing. You know, you think, I mean, one of the worst things you can think about is a collision at sea, you know, and especially with one of these super tankers. I mean, you see them, and, you know, I'll radio them, and they won't respond.
No.
They won't respond. I mean, I just avoid them, but, you know, you can imagine. I've had a friend of mine, he described, he's a whale scientist, whales being impaled on the front of the bulb of the super tanker when they come into port. They have no idea. It's such a massive instrument.
Well, this particular boat that hit me was 300,000 ton, 300 metres long, 65 metres wide, with
300 meters.
With a draft of 25 metres.
That's insane. That wouldn't fit through the Panama Canal?
No, it wouldn't. No. It's just too big. It was. I mean, they carry about $400 million worth of crude oil, these things.
Wow.
They're just enormous.
That's incredible. So, if you were to rewind the clock to the best moment on the boat, what was it?
But most of it's a good time.
Well, tell me about it.
No,
what was it?
There's no such thing as a good time.
No, but if you were to say, I mean, I can tell you right now where I would go, but you know, there are all wonderful times. But what was one of them? What was one of the times you're like, I wish I could just replay that in high definition again, because it was so amazing.
I don't know. I really, all of it's been good. We've talked about a lot of the things that have gone bad.
Yeah.
But everything's been good. The time in Thailand, for instance, was really wonderful. And travelling around the Mediterranean was really good. I love travelling through the Caribbean from island to island. It's been a wonderful experience.
You have a favourite island in the Caribbean?
I like St. Lucia because they had some brilliant restaurants there.
And Indian food.
Yes, they did. They had some wonderful Indian restaurants. It was a really lovely place. All the French islands were the best.
They're good, aren't they?
Because they are... what can we say about them? They're organised.
They're on time.
Yeah, they're organised, they're on time, their food is excellent.
I agree.
And so, yeah, I think the French
They're a beautiful place where you can get what you need.
Yep.
And you don't pay over too much.
Mm-hmm.
The food is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But honestly, I can't say of the best time. I think possibly the best times is when you've had an ocean passage and you come to somewhere
Yeah, I agree
And
with that.
and you tie up.
Yeah.
You think, wow, you know, that's
I did it.
several weeks, and I can do with a drink now and sit down.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think that's nice.
That is nice. No, being done with the passage. I mean, passages are awesome. A friend of mine said passages are kind of like pregnancy. The first part you don't really notice. The second part is pretty good. You get used to it.
Mm.
And the third part is horrible because all you're thinking about is it being over.
I don't know. I've never been pregnant.
Me neither, thank God.
Uh-huh.
But but what if you were to say for us, you know, what? Don't miss this. Where do we go?
Well, where are you going?
Well, we're going to go down the coast of South America. Then we'll kick off and we'll go across the Pacific. We'll certainly go to New Zealand and Australia, and then probably beyond that, Southeast Asia and maybe around. I mean, we don't know exactly.
Well, we can only tell you some of the things. Of course, Australia, of course, we can tell you.
Yeah.
The Whitsundays is really worth seeing.
Okay.
Lovely coral, lots of islands, and the fish, you take down a handful of bread and they try to force your fingers open to get
That's pretty
to it.
cool.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so that is good. There's very strong trade winds up on the north there of Australia too.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
So that was really good. Where you're going, South America, we haven't been, so we have no advice at all.
Yeah. One of the few places you haven't been.
Yeah, quite a few. It's amazing. I mean, we've been so many places,
Yeah.
and yet there's loads more to see.
It's exactly
So our
right. The
next trip will
Japan's
be
everything.
canal boats.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a bit like the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know.
Oh, I agree with
Yeah.
that.
And that's exactly like sailing. The more places you go, the more places you realise there's more places yet to
Yeah.
go to. Yeah.
And so you've got kids.
Well, not really.
They're
They're not kids. They're older than you.
Well, so and you have two,
Yes. we
and
both
you have two
Yes,
also.
a boy and
Vicky?
a girl and a boy and a girl.
And eight grandchildren.
8 grandkids. And have they ever come to the boat?
No.
They need to come.
They don't.
Oh, no,
they
they're
think
not.
we're mad.
Yeah.
They say you're mad.
Well, of course they do.
I
The
think
comments
they're
are,
insane.
why are you doing that at your age?
Why are you doing it at any age? Because you can, my friend.
I know.
Yes, of
Right
course,
on.
of course. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. So, I mean, loads of people, I'm sure, have told you you're crazy to do it.
Hmm.
How'd you know it wasn't crazy?
Well, it obviously is crazy. No.
No, I think.
No one has the remote
Yeah,
sense
I
of.
think if you've got a dream, you should go for it. And Jeff has this dream since he was a child, and why not?
Why not is right.
Yeah.
So, Vicky, I was asking Jeff, best places. You know, some of the times I said to him, if you could rewind the clock to a really spectacular moment, what was it?
Oh no, I've probably just told you this. We've been to so many spectacular places.
Well, think of one.
Well, Italy. We just loved it because of the culture,
Yeah.
the arts.
How did they get so lucky to have everything?
I know, exactly.
Damn Italians.
But another place that I really loved was Santorini in Greece.
Okay.
It's just, all
Yeah.
these little houses that just look like.
You have this sense of awe at Santorini, or Thera as they
Beautiful,
call it,
because
you see this big archipelago, and you can just imagine the explosion that caused that.
Yeah.
You think, wow, you wouldn't want to be within 1,000 miles of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we went to this other place which I always remember. Was it Manila? Oh, God, what was it? It was in Greece anyway. And there's sort of a little piece of land that stretches out, and there's an island. And it's so primitive. They have donkeys and carts, and you just sort of, because I love hiking, you hike to the top, and then you see this beautiful sea right around you, and the yachts. Oh, it's so beautiful.
What about that guy with the glasses in Indonesia? Do you remember that?
Oh yes, this is so nice. We went when we were in Indonesia. We sort of anchored by this little fishing village, probably about 20 people with that, and we took them down some food, rice, flour, etc. And anyway, I took my camera there because I love taking photos of people. So I took all these photos of children, the few children that were there, the mothers with their babies, the old folks. And the next day, I had them printed out, and I took them and showed them and gave them to them.
Yeah.
And they were so thrilled. They've never seen a picture of themselves.
Wow.
And you could see the surprised look on
Yeah.
their face.
Fascinating.
And then there was this old guy that I took his photo. He had such an interesting face. And I gave him this photo and he's going, needed longer arms like I do. And I realised that he couldn't see. So
Yeah.
I gave him my glasses, my reading glasses.
Yeah.
As soon as he put them on, it was like, wow, I can see. You know, and
Yeah.
it was just wonderful. And
And you saw his own
saw
face.
his photo, and he was absolutely amazed. And then he went to give them back to me.
Yeah.
And I said, no. I said,
They're
"Listen,
yours."
You keep them. And look, his smile went from here to his ears, you know. Oh, it was such a wonderful smile, wasn't it? You know?
I bet.
Yeah.
To have all those.
So things like that, you know, really so rewarding. I just, you know,
I do know.
yeah, it was lovely. Yeah. And
So, what's the future hold?
getting,
Oh, well, we argue about this, of course. The future holds that we're going to go back to Australia. I'm going to get some medical problems attended to.
All right.
and
if
dental problems that
Oh,
we
yes.
both have.
That's
Well,
right.
everyone.
If I'm okay with that, we might go back to France, Port Napoleon, via a canal boat there, and then go through the canals. That I would
sounds
love.
Great.
That'll be wonderful. You don't have to worry about sails, wind, waves.
Anything.
Under the
nothing.
engine.
Only the engine.
Yeah.
Just
And
turn
you
it
can stop
on.
when you want.
Yeah,
And
that's
start when you want.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So
That sounds
that
terrific.
would be good.
Do you think your kids will visit then?
I don't know. I have no
I think,
idea.
you know, our children are spoiled. That's the problem.
Well, all
and
kids
they
are
don't
spoiled.
and they don't like to rough it. This is roughing it.
Mm.
They just like to be in comfort, you know, so
You know, there's a guy in the U.S. He says, you know, don't confuse comfort with happiness.
I know. It's so true.
It is so true,
Yeah,
isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
and
Dean
they do,
Karnazes.
unfortunately.
Mm.
I think it's very wise.
Yeah.
But I'd rather be comfortable and happy than uncomfortable and happy.
Well said, my friend.
But she's been a lovely, comfortable boat and safe.
What advice would you give to the next owner?
I hope that they love her the same way as we did and look after her.
You just look after it. It's fine. It's a
No.
very,
You know,
very
you get
strong boat.
attached to things,
Sure,
and I'm attached to her
of course.
because she's really looked after us. I mean, when we got hit by a tanker, I mean, if you know, she was a fiberglass boat, we
Yeah,
wouldn't be here today,
you're right.
and nobody would have known anything about it.
You're exactly right.
You know.
So how'd you come up with the name Wraith?
We didn't.
We
This it was when we bought it off the chap who had built it, and it wasn't complete in the interior, and the outside it had that hungry horse look, you know,
Yeah.
the typical steel boat. And I wondered what Wraith meant, just like you've asked. And I looked it up in the Oxford Dictionary, and it says Wraith, an apparition or ghost of someone who's just died or just about to die.
Wow.
And I couldn't.
What a name for a boat.
And I
I
couldn't
know.
believe it. And I said, what? I phoned him. And I said, what the hell did you call the boat that
Exactly.
for? And he said, well, he said, I know that. He said, but I looked it up in the Scottish dictionary. And in the Scottish dictionary, a wraith, it's still an apparition or a ghost, but it's a guardian.
So
Very
I thought,
good.
we're
So he
gonna
said,
stick to
we'll go with that one.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
But I couldn't believe it,
Well,
honestly.
she has been a guardian, hasn't
Yeah,
She
she?
has,
yeah.
really has.
Yeah.
I mean, God, I mean, we've grounded her that many times because the charts were out.
Yes.
You
Mm.
know, yeah.
How many hours on the engine?
Oh.
Oh, goodness.
Original engine?
No, no. We replaced it with a reconditioned engine when we were at Luca, Gambia, which is in the southeast of Australia,
Okay.
because we dropped a valve through the piston.
Oh yeah.
Which is
That'll-
rather
that's the end of
hassle.
that.
So, anyway, we replaced it with a reconditioned engine, and it's been running there, sweet as a nut, a Mazda.
Wow.
You know, a test to a Mazda truck diesel.
Wow.
It's been running sweet as a nut for 18 years. Touch wood quick.
Got it, no doubt. Kiss it. So, how many hours on it?
I
Would you
don't know.
guess?
I don't know.
18 years.
I don't know. 18 years. But we don't do that much motoring.
Yeah.
We almost always sail. And even if there's sort of no wind and we're doing
Yeah.
1 knot, we just leave the sails up and go.
There's no rush.
No, that's exactly right, yeah.
You're home already.
Yes, exactly right, yeah.
But you know, I mean, you go to countries and the scenery is beautiful. You know, such beautiful scenery, such a diverse to what we have in
Yes.
Australia. You know, the different colours.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely magic, weren't
Mm.
they? When we were in the first time we went to Italy, we went to this marina called Sibri, wasn't it? Sibri. and you go through this little canal. And anyway, we wintered there 2 years, and you get out in the morning, and there's these beautiful mountains. That your view is these beautiful mountains, all covered in snow, and absolutely magic, wasn't it?
And one time all the boats were covered in snow. So
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. And then in spring, the whole country, the mountains, everything's covered in wildflowers. Just
Wow.
like a carpet of colours.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing, beautiful, absolutely. Yeah.
So, you're going to go back. You're going to sell the boat. You're going to get your medical stuff taken care of. How do you explain what you've experienced to people who've never sailed?
Most people are not the slightest bit interested,
Yeah, but
and you'll probably find that too.
Yeah,
Most
I
people,
already have.
Most people are not the slightest bit interested. They go, oh, did you do that? And they talk
Yeah.
about their baby's first tooth, or
Yeah.
or the price of eggs in the supermarket, and because we just have nothing in common. And the one thing we've noticed most of all when we go back to Australia, that we have almost nothing in common with anyone.
Well, I can imagine.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like it's just almost an abomination. I mean, when I first met you guys just today, I thought these guys have to go down, and you have to immortalize this experience in some way. Are you going to write a book or anything? Or?
I'd love to.
I have no interest. I feel like I'm a pawn on a chessboard. I can only go
but
forward.
I'm interested in writing a book, definitely.
You should.
Yes, because we've had some wonderful
But
experiences.
so many
really
people have done
great.
the same thing.
Yes, but people haven't had a lot of people have not had the experience that we've had.
We're not orphans. We're
I
not
know,
unique.
but
I don't know
we've
about
got
that.
personal experience. People sort of you get people that say, right, I'm going to circumnavigate the world, and that's exactly what they do. They don't stop to smell the roses,
Yes.
so to speak, whereas we did.
No, you sure did.
And I think they've missed out.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, we thought about just now, just hightailing across. We could make it around in a year, honestly, a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I thought, we had this decision, Helen and we talked about it. I said, you know what, why are we going? It's not for that. It's not so you can just check it off.
No.
It's just because you want the time. So we're actually going to go to the Marquesas about 4 months early, and we're going to stop.
Yeah.
And we're going to wait. We're going to go in December. And we're just going to spend 4 or 5 months in the
Good on
Marquesas.
you.
And just gee, there's only a few
Yeah.
islands.
Yeah.
But just, go to church, meet the people,
Yeah.
find out the
Yeah.
name of their kids, do something.
Well, that's what we've done. In a lot of places that we went, there was a Christian church. And it's really fantastic, especially in Cyprus. I had so much support because of this church.
Yeah.
And they would go and visit Jeff in hospital. And whereas the yachties that were there, they were sort of a bit apprehensive of catching something, And but these people, from the church, they would make sure that someone
How cool.
went and visited him every night.
Oh,
I'll go
amazing.
during the day because it was a fair way. Actually, it was really funny because what I would do is I'll have my bicycle because the bus would only go one way, and then late in the afternoon there wasn't a bus to come back. So I would go with the bus, and then on the way, I'll go with the bus, and the bus would allow me to put the bicycle on the bus. And he would always ask me, oh, how's your husband?
Wow.
They all got to know me. And then coming home, I'd have to ride the bicycle
Yes.
because there was no bus. But everyone was so nice, especially the people from the church.
I think in America, and in many countries now, we live sterile lives where, you have your iPhone, you text everyone, you don't really get that kind of
No.
depth of experience, or just you don't get to know people.
Yeah, I really appreciated their support because, Jeff was really, he was very ill. And I would go and visit him and I would say the next day, oh, has anyone come to visit you? He had no idea that people were there visiting him. But I would know because they'd leave something for him, leave a book or a fruit or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, one of the great debates in life, and most people having the debate have no idea and have not experienced what you have. But what is the nature of the human being? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it mixed?
Well, it depends if you believe in the weak anthropic principle.
Tell me.
Well, the only reason we can discuss this, if the world was any different at all to what it is now, we wouldn't be here asking that question.
You're absolutely right.
So I think it's academic.
It may be, but there are a lot of people thinking the same question.
Yes, but the world's the way it is. It can't be
So
any
how'd you?
different.
So what do you think? Yay or nay? Is it good or what are people like?
I think
Are they out for themselves or are they out for helping?
I think that in a lot of cases it's just a battle of the genes, is that we just want to preserve our own DNA and we do it in the best way we can, whether it's bacteria or a human.
True, but what about all those people that came to visit you when you were sick?
Yes.
They
No,
didn't have any genetic benefit to that, did
No.
they?
No, but there was one thing that happened to me too there that I remember now. You've just prompted my memory. When the church people came there, they'd left me a Bible, which I was reading.
Oh, this is a lovely story.
And I'm reading this Bible, and this nurse was looking at me, and I could see that she was kept
Sure.
looking out of the corner of her eye. And then eventually she plucked up enough courage and she came over to see. She said, "You must be a very good man because you're reading the Bible." I said, "Well, hang on, it doesn't actually quite work like that."
No, it doesn't, does it?
But I was reading it, and then she started to tell me what her problem was that she was having this relationship with a man that her parents didn't approve of, and she was having a sexual relationship with a guy, and she didn't know what to do. And I thought, here I am, I'm dying, and you want counselling. So anyway, I helped her as best as I could. I don't know the result. You know, as we all know, that one sows, another reaps.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
But that was always stuck in my mind, and I often think about her and wonder what she
Yeah, how'd
jumped
that
at
come
the
out?
end.
But
Yeah.
I must
I said, but why don't you speak to your parents, and why don't you take your boyfriend along and have a discussion?
Sure.
Because that is the way you've got to start.
Interesting.
It was so funny though, because I'm thinking, I'm dying, I can't be bothered
And she was a
counselling
nurse.
someone.
Yes.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course, yeah.
Yeah, this
You must
is
hopefully
lovely.
in the recovery phase.
Oh dear me.
No idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
But,
Like little Demba, isn't it, in Gambia? We have
Yeah.
no idea at all what happened to them. But
Wouldn't you just love to know?
yeah, but there's no way of finding out. And
Yeah.
we've just, we did what
And
we
that's
could.
not why you did it, of course.
No, of course
Yeah.
not. We did it at the time
Yeah.
to help him because
Yeah.
he needed help. Not because
Yeah.
we wanted to feel
Of
good.
course not.
He needed help.
Yeah.
And we did as much as we possibly could.
Oh,
But there were other funny stories there.
Yeah,
We
what
had to
about-
buy water, remember?
No, yeah, but wait a minute, about the blackboard. When we first got
Oh,
there,
yeah.
the first thing they asked us was, "Have you got black paint?" And I thought, "Black paint?" And I said, "Why do you want black paint?" "Oh, we've got to paint our blackboard. It's gone all, all the black
Yeah.
has come off."
Wow.
And fortunately, I did
Yeah.
have a little tin of black paint, and wow, they just were thrilled about that.
And
Wow.
then we wanted to get some water because
Oh, this
obviously
is so
in the
funny.
Gambia you can't drink
No,
the
you're not
water
getting anything.
in the river. But they did have a well that was a couple of miles further inland. And so we spoke to the local chief and the people. They said, "Well, how do we get some water?" He said, "Well, first of all, you've got to hire a donkey and you've got to hire a cart. They come from two separate people." And they said, "You go to this well and they'll bring it back." Because we'd run it, because you couldn't use the water maker in the river.
No, no.
It was just so silted
No,
up.
of
It
course.
would only run for an hour. Anyway, we did ask him the question. He said, "What happens when we get there? Is it a bucket or
Yeah.
a pump or what do you do?" He said, "Don't worry about it. You just go there." And so we were very strange about this. So we went there with the donkey and the cart and the
rented
people,
from two different
and
people.
umpteen jerry cans on the back of this cart, because they don't worry about how much
The
the
donkey
donkey
can
can
carry.
pull, only
Of
how
course
much
not.
the cart can hold. It's a bit like Dickens. And anyway, when we went there was all these young girls, possibly between 14 and 16 years old,
Uh-huh.
pumping water for all the men. And we said, "Why are they doing it?" Because they're really pumping hard. And the harder they pumped, the better they enjoyed it. And we wondered why, and it's because they're trying to snag a husband And they've obviously got it in their mind that the harder they pump the water, the
The
better they
stronger the
prove
Wow.
themselves,
better,
that the
yeah.
better chance they've got to get a husband at this pump. And so they
amazing.
man this water pump all day long, pumping water for men who come down with
Wow.
jerry cans in the hope that they can get one for a husband.
My God.
I kid you not, it's just
I
unbelievable.
believe every word.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, oftentimes when we're somewhere, I look at Helen and I say, you know, what's amazing is that that's going on right now, this incredible moment where someone is, you know, I don't know, fixing the hoof on a donkey so they can get to market. This is going on and has been going on every damn day, and I had no idea of it.
Yeah.
And it's just the way everyone's living their life outside the gates, I call it, the
Yeah.
gates of America, the gates of Australia.
Yes.
Outside the gates, everyone's living these lives, and you know what? And no one told them they should be unhappy about it. And they're not.
No.
No.
They're not.
No.
But we're so insulated, we have no idea.
No.
In the States, for sure. And probably in the rest of the world, it's a little better. But that's what it's been for me, at least, an eye-opener, that all these lives are unfolding every day. And all these women are pumping the water. These, I mean, these,
Looking
Young
for
women
husband.
looking for a husband.
Looking for a husband.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I better tell Grace and Lily or two.
Incredible.
No,
I think we should have finished this by now. shouldn't
Well,
we?
maybe so. So, do you have any last words of advice for anyone in the world who's looking at you and thinking you're crazy, or that you're the most sane people? I think the most sane people I've ever
And
met.
if you really want to do something, go for it.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because
do it and
you'll
enjoy it.
regret it for the rest of your life
Yes.
if you
Isn't
don't.
that the
You only
truth?
get one life.
Even
So
if
if you
even
want
if you
to
don't
succeed,
succeed,
Yes,
it's
just
better to give it a
try.
go.
It sure is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Well, on
No,
that, let's
we've
close it up.
really had
Okay.
wonderful.
Right on. Thank you guys very much.
Okay. Yeah, we've gone up to Bangkok
Yeah.
and we had got a bus
We're
with the
backpacking.
backpacking. We got on this old bus with the upside down chickens and
Oh,
goats
of
and
course.
God knows what else. And we dropped off at this godforsaken village. We're walking through it and we found this bunch of children, probably between 5 and 8 years old, and they were really excited because they caught a snake. And they don't get much protein. They don't starve because there's lots of water there. They can grow vegetables
Sure.
and lots of rice.
Yes.
But they don't get much protein. And they caught a snake and they were really excited about it. And they're a lovely little family of very young kids. And my wife wanted to give some money to the mother. The mother turned up. And their currency is called kip. And you need a whopping great bundle of kip to
Yes.
buy
I don't know.
to buy anything.
Okay.
So my wife, God bless her, in her innocence, gives this money, a big pile of it. It's not worth much, of course, probably less than 10 American dollars, but wants to give it to the mother, and she goes, for your children, you know, for your
Yeah,
family.
of
Yeah, I said, for your children.
And this
Yeah.
woman goes hysterical. She's screaming and goes hysterical. We think, what have we done? What have we done? What have we done? Anyway, there was a student who could speak Lao and could speak English.
Yes.
And we said, what have we done wrong? And then he spoke to her and he translated, and she thought we were trying to buy one of her children. No kidding.
This is honest.
What a predicament.
The innocence, yeah, you know what I mean?
So once he explained to her that
Yeah.
I was giving her the money for her family, oh, she was so grateful.
Yeah, no good
She-
deed goes
She
unpunished.
smiled and, you know, she was so pleased.
I
She was
bet.
probably relieved. Oh,
I bet
God.
you didn't want to buy a kid. I'm glad she didn't try a hackle.
I thought, I was at an absolute loss to understand why she'd gone into this
Yeah.
hysterical mode. But then, of course, afterwards we found out that people do go there to buy children.
Wow.
And,
Yes, so
But wow, it was an eye-opener to
I
us, I
bet
tell you.
it was.
It really was. Okay,
Did you see what happened with the snake?
well, they cook it.
they clicked.
And what kind of snake was it?
I don't know, no
Was
idea.
it big?
It's about 4 foot long.
Oh, enough. Wow. That's a good story. All right. We'll finish with that. Awesome.